that ignore.
Gentlemen, for this episode of the Self-Actualized Man podcast. I am your host, Weston Zink, and I would like to thank you for joining me on this journey towards optimizing our lives, actualizing our potential in business, at home, in our relationships, communities, and most importantly, in the arena of life. Take a moment to check out the Self-Actualized Man Facebook page where like-minded men can join together on the journey to actualizing your masculine potential. The Self-Actualized Man community also seeks to provide you with a wealth of information and resources that you desire most to help optimize your life and to succeed in your life endeavors. So I appreciate any feedback on how I can help you thrive and prosper and any content that you guys might be interested in. I am still building the page as well as the podcast, which I didn't realize actually takes a lot of work, so I have mad respect for people who really dedicate a lot of effort into that. But today we're going to explore the psychological model known as the hierarchy of needs that was developed by American psychologist Abraham Maslow in 1943. So, why do you think it might be important to identify our needs? You know, you'll have guys say, I don't need anything. I'm strong and independent. I don't need anyone. I don't need anything. I call BS. Why? Because satisfying our needs is a powerful driving force which motivates much of our behavior and our life choices from childhood all the way up to where we are right here, right now. While all of us have varying degrees of unmet needs, and many of us really struggle attaining our needs in ways which really promote long-term health and well-being. Instead, many people rely on really immature, dysfunctional, self-destructive strategies that, in the long run, may satisfy their needs, but these tactics such as manipulation or placating or kind of using anger and aggression to dominate and control usually only leads to self-loathing, depression, loneliness, anxiety, and rage, which poisons every aspect of our life. So, in this episode, this is part one, we're going to discuss the three foundational needs that are pertinent to basic survival, but also paramount to building relationships with others and personal growth. So today we're going to cover the first three needs levels, which is physiological or biological needs, the needs for safety and security, as well as the needs for love and belonging. We're also going to look at how deficits in these specific needs areas is negatively affecting our lives and try to explain and help kind of build awareness about the deeper forces at play that are motivating your thoughts and your actions each and every day, or maybe getting you stuck or, leading you where you don't want to go. And of course, I'm here to help you guys optimize your lifestyle and really maximize your innate masculine potential. So we'll also explore some practical strategies that may help us meet these needs in more healthy and constructive ways. So for starters, who's Abraham Maslow? So he's an American psychologist, and he was one of the major contributors to the field of humanistic psychology, which started in the 1930s but became a really major field in the 1960s. Abraham Maslow and other humanists detested the pathologizing portrayal of humanity by the two previous major psychological theories, which was Freudian psychoanalysis and behaviorism, which is Skinner and Pavlov and Watson. So Maslow's work focused on four fundamental principles of psychology and psychotherapy. So number one was the primary study of psychology should be experiencing the person. Number two, choice, creativity, and self-realization rather than mechanistic reductionism, meaning they emphasized human free will, human creativity, innovation, and this stuff called self-realization, also known as self-actualization, rather than the mechanistic stimulus response, Pavlovian conditioning type view of humans. Number three, only personally and socially significant problems should be studied, and significance, not objectivity, is the watchword. So I can see this as there's maybe some things that are going on with humans that, at least I say at this time, they weren't able to study. I definitely think we have a lot better research and social research out now, which we'll actually talk a little bit about later on. But he was focused on studying things that are significant to human growth and evolution. And last but not least is the major concern of psychology should be the dignity and enhancement of people, which was definitely, at least with the behaviorists, definitely much different contrast compared to the behaviorists. So Maslow developed this thing called the hierarchy of needs. It was a 5-stage model that identified and distinguished between deficiency needs, which were the first 4 levels, and growth needs, which is the top level, also known as self-actualization. Maslow discusses that all human needs are attained in a linear fashion, whereas we are only able to attain higher order needs when we have satisfied lower order needs. And we'll talk a bit how this plays out here in a little bit. So Maslow also postulated that deficiency needs, that are unmet, and the desire to fulfill these needs becomes a stronger and stronger motivating force in our lives the longer the needs are denied. So think about it this way, like how long will you go without eating or drinking water? Or how long are you going to go without going to the bathroom? There will come a point in time where the need to eat, the need to drink, and the need to go poop are going to become so overwhelmingly strong that you're not going to care about anything else. So let's explore the first 3 levels of needs. So the first level is the basic physiological or biological needs. So these are the needs that are most pertinent to mere biological survival. These are the needs of food, water, sex, warmth, homeostasis, oxygen, and excretion. And this level is what really sets the foundation and the groundwork for us to attain all other higher order needs. So think about it. You must eat or you're going to die. You must drink or you're going to die. You must breathe or you're going to die. These are the body's most basic survival needs. So obviously any disruption, depletion, or dysfunction in the fulfillment of basic physiological needs will drastically impact not only our mere ability to function in day-to-day activity, but also to attain higher order needs. So how can we possibly attain any other needs if we're too sick, if we're too lethargic, if we're too fat, if we're nearly dead? It's not happening. So I want you guys to take a minute to really reflect on the food you consume each and every day. Like, do you actually know what you're really putting into your body? So food is supposed to contain the essential building blocks which are critical to physical health, vitality, sexuality, strength, and efficiency, and just basic overall biological functioning. So think about, what are you eating? What are you putting into your body? What are you absorbing? So, like, how are the toxins that are so prevalent in the standard Western diet, poisons such as aspartame or fluoride or parabens or aluminum, PCBs, high fructose corn syrup, how are these substances impacting our vital organs on a long-term basis? And there's a lot of good research that really backs that consumptions of certain foods or certain toxins basically leads to the development of cancer, autoimmune disorders, and also brain damage. So, look, we cannot escape the laws of cause and effect. As much as we may want to put responsibility on other people, we can't escape it. So everything we put into our bodies has an effect. So are you consuming the necessary sustenance to maximize your vitality or build your endurance and strength, optimize your mind's effectiveness and your body's efficiency in daily life? Or are you consuming, toxins and poisons, frankenfoods as a lot of people call them, that are gradually making you fat, sick, apathetic, depressed, unfocused, and really destroying your most precious possession, which is your body? And while these needs also extend to what we are feeding our minds each and every day. So think about, like, every time you log on to Facebook or Instagram, turn on the TV, watch the news, walk through the mall, you're constantly being bombarded with messages about what you should believe, who you should be, what you should be afraid of and hate, who you should emulate and idolize, what you should spend your money on, what you should value, and what you should do with your limited time here on this earth. So unfortunately, all of these messages really have underlying fear attached to them. And deep down, this fear starts to penetrate into our minds, and it starts to make us feel afraid. And a lot of us fill our minds with just basic toxic garbage and useless knowledge. And this is basically, over the long run, in addition to consuming toxins physically, when we put toxic information into our brain, or disinformation, it really, over the long term, destroys the brain and any wisdom and intelligence people have. So I want you guys to remember this, that your body is a vehicle, and it is the only vessel which transports you from point A to point B. Like, think about it. I can't go anywhere unless I have this body to do it. I can't. It's impossible. And our body is the only thing that allows us to experience and interact with the physical world around us. So, I want you guys to honestly look at your diet, what you're really putting in yourself, and what chemicals you're ingesting and how it affects you. There's a lot of other interesting research behind how certain deficiencies in vitamins and minerals, as well as consumptions of toxins, leads to various mental health disorders. So there might be a reason physiologically that you're feeling so unmotivated or lethargic or anxious or depressed. So take care of your body, nurture it, train it, heal it. Your body here is to serve you, so be really mindful of how you're treating it and what you're putting in it. Next level is the needs for safety and security. So these are the needs in the hierarchy, which is just the sheer basic need to feel safe and be secure. So there are several different sublevels for safety and security needs. One safety and security needs set is the needs for protection against the elements, such as clothing and shelter, but also a sense of feeling protected and safe against imminent threats to my physical safety, such as with violence and murder. This means that I can stay warm and protected when it's freezing cold outside, or where I live, such as in my family or my neighborhood, is a safe place for me to be. Safety and security needs also extend to a more macro level, in which these are needs for law and order, physical security, environmental stability, the freedom from fear, which are all related to the financial, economic, domestic, relational, familial, political, and occupational areas of our lives. The foundations of these needs is honestly first met by having stability and safety provided by our nuclears and sometimes extended families in what we call our home. So for a lot of people, over the last 60 plus years, there's been a massive breakdown in the nuclear family. And some of the kids I work with, our parents have gone through divorce, and this physical separation really causes a lot of disturbance and a lot of chaos in their sense of feeling safe, stable, and secure. So these needs further extend into having law and order in our neighborhoods, schools, and communities, having stability economically, having stability in terms of cultural morality in our relationships and our political systems, which, if you've been paying attention to much of the news cycle over the last decade or so, you can see that there's patterns that things are becoming more and more and more unstable, which I think on a collective level is really generally threatening all of our senses of stability and security. So I'd like to actually discuss a very important study that actually displays how threats to our safety and security in early childhood have very significant and absolutely destructive long-term consequences. There was a 3-year research study conducted between KAISER Permanente and the Center of Disease Control between the years of 1995 and 1997 with 17,000 HMO providers in Southern California, and this study was known as the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. And it was hailed as one of the largest investigations into long-term effects of childhood abuse and neglect. So the ACE study measured several different important areas, such as have you experienced emotional, physical, or sexual abuse or neglect in your childhood? And it also focused on kind of environmental and other challenges, such as household domestic violence or substance abuse, parental separation and divorce, if there was criminality in the household, family mental illness, and that they used this as criteria to determine long-term impacts physically as well as psychologically on children. So the Adverse Childhood Experiences study postulates how these adverse childhood experiences have first an impact on biological development. So this is neurological wiring in early childhood, which then threatens and impacts our ability to securely and safely attach to other humans in intimate relationships. This is most commonly mother and father. Since ACEs directly threaten the innate needs for safety and security, this usually starts to leave these needs unfulfilled and unmet at critical growth stages in our lives. And as a consequence, it starts to lead to impairments in emotional regulation, social functioning, and cognitive development. And just from there on, um, the negative effects of early childhood trauma and neglect and abuse eventually will lead to early death. While basic biological needs are vital to physical survival of the organism, of my body, the needs for safety and stability in our lives are the crucial building blocks for the next level of human needs, which is the needs for love and belonging. So I'd like to discuss some practical strategies in building confidence and skill in high-threatening situations for you guys. And the first one is learning either just basic martial arts or fighting skills. There is a art to fighting. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of different martial arts that all talk about different ways to fight and to protect yourself. Having some basic knowledge on how to defend yourself if you are ever in a threatening situation drastically increases not only your self-confidence in a threatening situation, and I'm not saying that you're initiating force. This is strictly in self-defense, but it also builds your skill. And two, learning martial arts or basic fighting skill is a great thing to do with a group of other guys, roll around, wrestle, punch it out, because it also starts to fulfill these needs for love and belonging, such with our friends and training partners. The next strategy that helps build self-confidence and skill in high-threat situations can be just simple firearms training. This is safety firearms training. This is also knowing the legal aspect of it. Like, you can't just shoot someone. There's legal parameters for justified self-defense. This is basic target shooting, and this is also tactical skills. So, some ways you can get about doing this if you're interested in guns or want to have an interest in guns, going and getting a concealed carry permit, which you learn a lot of these things, going to the range, the gun range I go to, is the guys are usually pretty cool. There are some asshole guys at gun ranges and gun stores, but at least the guys I've talked to more or less are pretty cool if you have questions. And get some experience in firearms training, whether or not you decide, like, hey, I want to carry my firearm in public or not, or I just want to have it at my house for basic self-defense. Having a firearm is a great equalizer of force and will give you self-confidence if you're in a threatening situation. And the last bit that really helps to build confidence and skill in high-threat situations is just really general but consistent resistance training, cardio exercises, strength training, real basic stuff that you do at your local gym. Not only do this meets our physiological needs, it trains our bodies, strengthens our bodies, increases the vitality and energy of our bodies, but it also meets our safety needs, because if I'm just generally in better health than especially than the other person, I will feel more confident if I'm ever put into a high threat situation. The last level, the third level, which will be the final level we'll talk about today, is the needs for love and belonging. So this is the first set of psychological and relational needs that we all desperately seek to fulfill in our lives. These are the needs for intimacy, trust, receiving and giving affection and love, being cared for, and also being cared about. There are also needs to belong. This extends more to the macro level, to be part of a group. This could be part of a family, a group of friends, co-workers, community, religious or political groups. And what's real common is these needs tend to focus on the desire to be socially accepted by other people. So being socially ostracized or kicked out of the group is one of the worst and scariest experiences we can have, as through our human evolution, being social belonging and being part of a group has been hardwired into our brain's biological need for survival. So even those of us who may be on the more introverted personality types like me, while we enjoy periods of isolation and kind of social withdrawal from others, deep down we still really do crave and enjoy spending quality time with people we like, and also cultivating meaningful relationships with others, even if it's only with a small select group of family or friends. Our needs for love and belonging are so strong that when we are completely isolated from other humans, we'll form relationships with trees, birds, squirrels, volleyballs, Wilson, dogs, cats, and other inanimate objects. In extreme cases of social deprivation, this will almost always lead to the development of psychotic behavior as a coping defense mechanism. So people who are in these situations will form relationships with different parts of their psyche, such as like maybe the naughty girl or the angry boy, or the man with glasses who tells me to do this or that, or the evil spirits which are doing this to me. So it's really clear that we all have intrinsic needs to belong and be loved and be cared for and be part of a group of people. So we see this in the modern society, how many of us fulfill our needs for love and belonging, most commonly met in social or political movements, on social media such as Facebook or Instagram. Want to get a lot of likes, right? A lot of social validation helps me feel belong. Drug culture, just general peer relationships, video gaming communities, family systems, the military, certain cultural ideologies such as social justice warriors, criminal organizations and gangs, mainstream cultural ideologues like the Hollywood elite, literal cults, which is also Hollywood in my opinion, political parties and religious communities. So these are all different manifestations of how we seek to get our needs for love and belonging. Again, what I really want to emphasize to y'all is to remember that the attainment of these needs postulated by Maslow and his hierarchy it's linear fashion. So people, if you have not previously attained your needs for safety and security, you will always have dysfunctional and codependent relational dynamics in all of your relationships, personal relationships, social relationships, professional relationships. So I want to take a minute to highlight some red flags and some characteristics really common with codependency in relationships. So some of these characteristics are like an unhealthy dependence on relationships, a compelling need to control people either via domination or manipulation, an extreme need for approval and recognition, problems with boundaries. Usually these people have enmeshed boundaries. Lying and dishonesty, poor communication with others, chronic anger, aggressive behavior, and a general lack of trust in oneself, in the world, and in other people. So these these are characteristic textbook red flags of domestic violence and abusive relationships. So if you're in a relationship and you are starting to recognize some of these patterns in your relationship, whether it's the other person or it's your own, is to recognize these are some warning signs of toxic and dysfunctional relationships. So because the codependent person usually typically lacks a strong sense of safety and security in themselves and in their environment, these unmet needs drive and create insecure attachments in their relationships. So, like some examples of these, right, is a person who is constantly calling you, is constantly wanting to check your phone, is constantly asking you where you've been and what you've been doing, and doesn't believe it when you give them an answer. I'll bet we'll just say it's an honest and truthful answer. That's a good example of insecure attachment in relationships. If also a person is, they won't get emotionally close. They are afraid of intimacy. This is also an example of codependent and insecure attachment. So these will always lead to self-fulfilling prophecies in that, think about it, if you're in a relationship in that someone's not willing to be close and intimate with you, physically, sexually, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, the chances of you staying in that relationship are probably not going to be it's not going to be a very long-lasting relationship. So that relationship ends, and this person's self-fulfilling prophecy of maybe not being good enough or being too afraid to attach leads to the feelings of abandonment, which I imagine is probably a childhood issue. So, in the past, men and women, while we coexisted, we lived in very, very different worlds. These were separate spaces where men could come together for the camaraderie of trust, encouragement, poop humor, respect, and loyalty, and some groups going so far as to kind of establish a brotherhood or a society of these like minds of very masculine men. And you see this very, very common in what you are called secret societies, such as Freemasons, Illuminati. Operates on the same principles. These spaces were essentially a place where men were allowed to simply be men. And these sacred male spaces have gradually been eroded and disbanded by the feminist war on men and boys over the last 60 years. We see this emphasis in girls groups and girl power and girl spaces and things that are only for women, and we don't simply see that, and actually an erosion of that for men. So these were arenas of combat, survival, business, power, war, politics, and of course women that have always been vital for our men's need and desire to test our power, our strength, our teamwork, our courage, our intellect in competitions, sports, politics, and of course most commonly back in the day was on the battlefield. And it's really unfortunate because we have really lost these sacred spaces of masculinity where we men could come together and simply be men. We see most of this stuff, and I'm doing it right here, right now with you all, is we men have been relegated to the realms of the cyber world. And something I hope to do with the Self-Actualized Man is not only have it in the cyber world, but to manifest these changes for men in the physical world. So we have lost relationships which are vital to our masculine growth and evolution. We have lost wise men as strong leaders. We have lost fathers as strong role models. And we have lost mentors of not only my generation, the millennial generation, but continual generations of young boys and young men. And I have to say another thing we lost too, which is also very, very precious to us, is that we've lost our women. Mainstream culture has completely denigrated the integrity and vital importance of masculine and feminine relationships, and even more so when those two relationships combine in the forms of marriage and the nuclear family. Men these days were portrayed as bumbling fools who would never be able to survive if it wasn't for their wife. You can think of Homer Simpson, Peter Griffin in Family Guy, King of Queens are all good examples of that. Or we're also portrayed as violent, women-raping psychopaths who women should never ever trust and never allow them to get close to. Also, if a man enjoys playing and interacting with children and wanting to mentor the future generations, he's most commonly viewed by society as a potential pedophile and a threat to children. So the importance of men in the family, but particularly as fathers and as husbands, have just been completely erased from the script in mainstream culture. So I want you guys to think about the relationships you all have with other men in your life, particularly, if you relationships with brothers, fathers, and your male friends. Are these guys you would call at 3 in the morning when your life has fallen apart? Kind of when your relationships, your family, your home, and your life is being shattered before your very eyes? So are your friends or your peers or people you look up to, are they living out their dreams, passions, and building their lives? Or are they broken, bitter, and defeated men who just simply gave up and maybe checked out of life? With the advent of technology and the internet age, do you even have friends that exist in real life? Or are they just simply pixels and projected characters on a screen? And for some men, that's a very real reality. With these men in your life, are they going to be real with you? Like, do they have the balls to tell you what you need to hear? Not what you want to hear, but what you really need to hear. While surrounding ourselves with yes men gives us nice daily ego boosts, genuinely what we men really, really need is we need other men in our lives who are going to see problems and call us out on our BS. I can't tell you how many men I've heard say, I have friends, but really, I really hate them all. I really don't like them. And it is absolutely apparent that when our needs for love and belonging aren't met by our family, our friends, our work, our communities, or our intimate relationships with women or other men, if that's your preference, when we lack male spaces to exert and to test and to express our masculinity, when we lack opportunities and don't have strong leadership and genuine relationships with both men but also with other women, we really see drastic increases in suicide, violent behavior, drug abuse, addiction, and early death. Like, this is not good for us men not to have these spaces and authentic and genuine and real relationships with other men and women and communities. And also for those of you who have children, have relationships with your children. It's not good. It's a real major destroyer of men in society today. So at the Self-Actualized Man, I seek to provide you all, at the very least, with the space, camaraderie, and companionship of forming genuine relationships with other men who may be struggling, who are questioning, who are creating, who are doing, who are seeking greater meaning and purpose and passion in their lives. The Self-Actualized Man Facebook community is a space where we can come together, exchange strategies, how to improve ourselves, our lives, our relationships, become proactive in optimizing our lifestyles and maximizing our potential, and also how we as the upcoming predominant generation of men, millennial generation, is how can we as men take action to help guide, challenge, and mentor younger generations of boys, but also of girls. So in closing, I want you all to remember, again, this is the most important piece to remember. According to Maslow, one cannot fulfill higher order needs like love and belonging until one has satisfied lower order needs such as physiology and safety. The forces driving our thoughts and actions to fulfill these needs will only become stronger the longer they are denied. So the more you deny these needs, the more you deny that, hey, you need to feel safe, and that maybe if you have anxiety, if you have trauma, I highly recommend that you seek therapy for that, because your sense of needs of safety and security were gravely threatened. And this is causing psychological and emotional conflict in your life and in your relationships. And most people will just continue to engage in self-destructive and dysfunctional strategies to attain these needs. And in the long term, most people will never, ever, ever, ever move beyond the first three levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So also, as you know, guys, here at the Self-Actualized Man, we strongly emphasize helping men learn how to become self-reliant, which is a predominant theme I see underlying our ability to attain these needs for resources, security, and belonging, as we seek to become the masters of our domain and build our own kingdom. I'd like to thank you all very, very much for taking a moment out of your day to allow me to speak to your heart, mind, and ears. And please stay tuned for the next episode, where we will explore the needs of self-esteem, significance, and competence. And I'm very, very eager to break down the great transition that I hope through the Self-Actualized Man podcast to help more men enter into, is known as the arena of self-actualization. I appreciate any and all feedback, so please like this video and subscribe. I also encourage you to join us at the Self-Actualized Man Facebook community. I'm working on building this community, and I really appreciate any feedback you can give me on how I can help you become a better man in your life. I also encourage, if you want to leave me a private message, please email me at the self-actualizedman360 at gmail.com. Thank you, guys. Take care. Peace, brothers.